Okie dokie. Okay then. Well, let me start sharing my screen and welcome everyone. Let's see. Okay, I actually need to stop sharing. I started sharing, now I'm going to stop sharing because I forgot to click an all important button that makes it so that you can see the video I'm going to show you. So we're going to start that again. Sorry about that. Okay, we're sharing the sound. So now you'll be able to hear the sound in the video. All right, excellent. When this happens, by the way, I can no longer see you guys. So if you have any questions or issues, you can send a chat to Bob or, just unmute yourself and say, hey, something's going on. I can't hear you or whatever the problem is. But for now, I'm just going to be talking to myself because I cannot see you guys. All right. So like I mentioned, I'm Kate Kelly from Lewis Creek Association, and our volunteer water quality monitoring program called South Chittenden River Watch. And I want to talk to you about how we can take better charge of our lake's future by using a watershed approach. We've been learning about our water quality over the years, and we wanted to share this information with you and invite you to network with us as we work to better achieve an all-in approach. So as we all know, Lake Champlain is an important and valued resource to Vermonters. The 2017 Clean Water Report by the Vermont State Treasurer says that $300 million is raised in tax and fee revenues from tourism each year. But a polluted Lake Champlain is costly to all taxpayers. The 20-year total clean water compliance costs are projected to be $2.3 billion or $115 million per year, according to that same Vermont State Treasurer's Clean Water Report from 2017. So we really must be all in to help Lake Champlain. We have to work at every level, from property owners to municipalities to the state, to restore the health and functioning of our watershed. What we do on all of our properties and in our towns throughout the watershed will determine our rate of success in restoring the health and beauty of Lake Champlain. Your help is really essential. Okay, so one of our pollutants that we know reaches Lake Champlain and causes a lot of trouble is phosphorus. We have phosphorus-rich clay soils in our Lake Champlain Basin. During rain events, like now, both fertilizer, manure, and these tiny clay soil particles that bind to soil phosphorus are carried the farthest and the fastest, leading to excessive phosphorus in our stream and lake waters. The smallest amount of bare soils can lead to erosion that transports this soil to Lake Champlain. Phosphorus provides the bulk of food for algae, and this then results in algae growth, including potentially toxic blue-green algae or cyanobacteria, and fish kills. So this phosphorus comes from many places, including stream bank erosion, developed land like roads, parking lots, lawns, fields, buildings, and in industrial facilities, wastewater treatment plants, forest harvesting operations and forest roads, and agriculture. So on the left side of your screen, you'll see a pie chart that shows what Vermont contributes to the Lake Champlain Basin. You can see that the majority of the phosphorus comes from agricultural lands, followed by our stream channel erosion at about 21%, and that's followed closely by developed lands that contribute phosphorus to the lake. Vermont contributes 631 metric tons of phosphorus per year. And in order to meet our phosphorus reduction targets, in order to improve lake water quality, we need to reduce our phosphorus by about 30%. So that's what you're looking at on the right side of your screen. The largest and most cost-effective reductions need to come from agriculture. Straightening of rivers and armoring banks was done mistakenly in the past to save farm fields and backyards. It caused water to flow faster, which led to more flooding downstream, more carrying of sediments, and more damage to property because of the force of floodwaters. So on the left side of your screen, where the arrow is pointing here, you see a naturally sinuous or curvy part of the La Platte River in Hinesburg. This is O'Neill Road and Shelburne Falls Road. So you can see how the river winds back and forth sort of naturally and it makes, old channels areas like this little oxbow you see here, cuts new channels through the river. But then we also have straightened stretches of river here in Hinesburg. So this is the Charlotte Road and Silver Street coming south, 116 coming through Hinesburg. And you can see here that the La Platte River does not look like that natural river. It has been straightened out and made to form this nice channel right along the western side of Hinesburg. And unfortunately, because of that, it can really cause more flooding downstream, carrying sediments and damage to property. Of the reaches that have been assessed in the La Platte watershed, which is 66 miles, 14 miles of those were mapped as straightened, and that's about 21% of the sites that they've assessed. As we all, I think, have heard, flooding is much more common now because of climate change. The vast majority of phosphorus reaches the lake during these major stormwater events. So overall, in our very large Lake Champlain drainage area, our clay soils, past management practices, more development, and heavier storms are accelerating the rate of phosphorus and other pollution reaching the lake. Because our river systems are so connected to lake health, solutions to lake pollution must occur throughout our systems, including their upslope watersheds. In other words, it really takes an all-in approach. What we do here in Hinesburg affects the lake. It also affects our downstream towns of Shelburne or Charlotte. This watershed approach is complemented by Vermont's enhanced and science-based river management principles. So we'll now watch a brief video that shows 3 river management principles. Each new strategy is shown first, followed by this historic stream alteration that it replaces, and it explains why this replacement is important. Okay, so I'll now just do a real quick review of those 3 river management principles. First, we have to allow our natural floodplains to work by slowing flows and attenuating sediments. When this happens, those phosphorus-rich clay soils can settle out onto the floodplain lands, delivering nutrients to the plants that live there and enriching their habitat instead of carrying the nutrients on down to the lake. Stream water and sediment flows slow down when streams meander naturally. By increasing the meanders and the stream length over the slope of its watershed, these flows are less erosive and both habitat and water quality increase naturally. Removing gravel from the stream bed causes downcutting. It adds to stream speed and force, and therefore erosion and sediment loading to the lake. The overall message of this video is that what we do in one place in a watershed may have an unintended effect on the stream. So we have to consider the functioning of the whole watershed or catchment area to be effective. This is what is meant by taking a watershed approach. Okay, so what's being done here in Vermont to improve water quality? First of all, the state of Vermont has put new regulations into place, including the 3-acre permit, the municipal roads general permit, and required agricultural practices. Towns and property owners must meet these requirements, often at great expense. Lewis Creek Association and land trusts work to promote voluntary measures, often going above and beyond regulations to take into account climate change. For example, the Vermont Land Trust conserved the river corridor on the Clifford and Briggs farms in the Starksboro Valley. This project will allow the stream to meander and access its natural floodplain, as shown in the video. Monitoring water quality helps to detect hotspots while understanding trends. LCA's water quality monitoring program, the South Chittenden River Watch, informs our project locations and designs, as well as the work of state agencies. Our current data results confirm that all of the La Platte region streams have excessive phosphorus concentrations. Towns and others can better utilize this information, for example, by including information about high phosphorus in your town plan, in order to allow the DRB authority to make conditions for water quality, such as respecting a wider buffer. So I just want to give a little bit of information about where you can find more data on water quality. We have a digital version of what we call our scorecard map for the La Platte River and some smaller streams further south that we call the direct drainage watersheds. They drain directly to Lake Champlain. This map is based on 10 years of water quality data results, and it also includes information on culverts and stream channel stability. So on the map, each icon with the 4 small squares that you see is one of our sampling locations. Each small square reflects a different parameter for water quality. So in the upper left of each square is phosphorus, and each larger square also shows solids on the upper right, E. coli on the bottom right, and chloride on the bottom left. The colors that you see reflect a water quality score of poor in red, moderate in yellow, or good in green. And you'll note that every station here has red in the upper left corner, showing that there are very high levels of phosphorus. In this document, there's also results for each town that you can zoom into a little bit more closely. And that, like I mentioned, includes data on stream channel stability and also on culverts. So how well the culverts match the channel and how they impact the movement of fish and other animals in the stream. So the document also gives a list of suggested projects for each town by various reports and studies. These projects help inform our work in Hinesburg to improve water quality. Last year, during the pandemic, we were able to update this a little bit and put it into an online format where you can actually click on different layers and turn on and off layers to explore things a little more closely. The online map is linked from our website, lewiscreek.org/library. And if you scroll down to this water quality and stormwater reports section, you'll see this scorecard map listed there. And there are several links that you can go to, including a brief video introduction to how this whole thing works, because it is a little complicated. There are a lot of different layers, and you can look at land cover data and conserved properties, and there's just a ton of information in there. So if you really want to delve into it, that's where I'd recommend you get started. And coming up in this next, well, hopefully in the next month or so, we'll have another format that looks just at data from this past year from our water quality sampling work. And I'd hope that would be ready for tonight, but it's not. So we'll make sure to publicize that when it comes out. It will be a story map format that discusses the various water quality results from across the different towns from just 2021. And then we'll add to it in future years. Okay, so transitioning just a little bit, Lewis Creek Associations, ahead of the storm program, tries to demonstrate best management or optimal management practices throughout the watershed. So it showcases some principles. We call these the 3 S's of slow it, spread it, and sink it, to try to improve water quality. By installing practices like these throughout the watershed, it will help us improve water quality in our streams and in Lake Champlain. Okay, so first, slow it. We want to slow water down. We don't want it to be rushing down and taking a bunch of sediment and other things with it. So at this site, which is East Thompson's Point Road in Charlotte, it's a roadside swale or a ditch. And this swale in particular was designed with these rock check dams that slow water down before it drains out into Thorpe Brook, which you can't see, but is down at the bottom or upper right of your screen. This one, hopefully many of you are familiar with, our Hinesburg Town Garage. And historically at this site, buildings and a berm were right up next to this brook, Beecher Brook. And it didn't allow this brook to spread out at all onto what was originally its natural floodplain. So a couple years ago, the town garage buildings were moved out of the way. New town garage was built up here, and we were able to to essentially restore the floodplain here. So excavation was done to remove the excess, fill and everything that had been right here next to the stream. We added these rocks and some logs into the stream to help raise the bed level, and thereby allowing the stream, when it floods, to come out here onto the floodplain and drop its sediment load before it gets washed down the brook into the La Platte River and onto Lake Champlain. This sort of process can also happen naturally, and that's one of the things that Bob is going to be discussing in a few minutes here about sort of a natural process that's been occurring at Geprags Park. Okay, so then sinking the water into the ground. At Shelburne Community School, this project transformed this area in front of the school from essentially a grassy area with storm grates where the water went directly from the parking lot into McCabe's Brook into a rain garden. This collects the water, especially in large storm events, and it allows it to sink into the ground, getting cleaned up by the plants in the rain garden before being sent on to the brook and the lake. Okay, so if you're a member of a town, whatever, planning commission, select board, conservation commission, what can you do to help improve water quality? One thing we can do is enhance the language for protection of river corridors, buffers, floodplains, and wetlands in our town plans and land use regulations. We can design for climate change too. As we know, climate change is bringing larger and larger storm events. So going above and beyond our existing state regulations, for example, lowering the trigger for the review of the amount of impervious surface, like we do in Hinesburg now. We require enhanced stormwater management practices for development of 10,000 square feet of impervious surface instead of the state's 1 acre trigger. So without these enhanced land management practices, our new weather patterns will damage the lake sooner. We can go above and beyond the municipal roads general permit. This roadside swale in Charlotte, again at East Thompson's Point Road, was designed to carry water from a 100-year storm in the swale, as opposed to maybe some other swales that are not designed to carry that much water. And we can apply those design principles from the municipal roads general permit to our driveways and our private roads, and thereby condition private road designs. As I mentioned, the municipal roads general permit applies only to public roads, but we have a lot of private roads and driveways in our towns. 33% of our roads here in Hinesburg are private. So we can apply those principles, but we can also enhance them to prepare for larger storms. Examples of this include crowning the road to prevent gully erosion, grass lining ditches on the sides, including water bars on steeper roads, and installing check dams and rock lining on those steep road ditches to slow the flow of the water. You can be informed by documented water quality conditions of our streams. Starting a conservation fund to protect our natural areas of high public value. This Charlotte Conservation Fund helped conserve this East Charlotte Lewis Creek property with additional funding from the Charlotte Land Trust and LCA. Mitigating impacts from historic building and farming too close to stream corridors and wetland areas, and from historic stream alterations that now increase flows, allowing excessive phosphorus loading to the lake. And of course, on our own properties, we can manage our landscaping to prevent soil and stormwater from leaving our properties. We can apply those same ahead of the storm principles of the 3 S's, slow, spread, and sink, to our own properties' backyards, driveways, and private roads. We can manage to prevent sediment and pollution from reaching our waterways. Here are just a few examples of what you can do on your own property. First of all, keep the soil on your property. Don't let it erode. Redirect your downspouts so that the water sheets over the lawn instead of making a gully. Use a rain barrel to collect rainfall so you can use it for watering, and fix those gullies when they've just begun. Grade your driveway properly and use water bars or broad-based dips. Don't allow that soil to leave your property. This is a rain garden installed at a private home in Charlotte. It allows water from the roadside ditch, which is here to sort of at the middle of your screen. It flows from the right side of your screen towards the left. And it used to flood here across their driveway and all the way up to their garage and their house. The new rain garden here allows the water to be collected in this area and to soak into the soil instead of flooding their property. Minimizing the amount of lawn you have, cutting your grass no shorter than 3 inches. That all helps slow the flow of the water because those taller grass and plants have deeper root systems and they can catch more water. Trees and shrubs along streams and swales help minimize pollutants and sediments that reach the stream. Natural processes like maintaining trees along streams also adds wood into the stream when they fall in, and that increases habitat for animals in the stream and others. Just a few other things that you can do on your own property to help improve our water quality. Hinesburg provides funding support each year to LCA, and we have a devoted group of volunteers who help collect water quality samples. You can consider joining our team. We're looking for volunteers now for this coming sampling season. Investing now in these preventive measures and fixing our past mistakes will cost us less in the end. So please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or to get involved. Funding for this presentation was provided by Lake Champlain Basin Program and NUIPIC, and also the Technical Basin Planning funding from Vermont DEC. So in summary, what we do on our properties and in our towns will determine our success in restoring both the health and beauty of Lake Champlain and our community health. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to turn it over to Bob, who, unless anyone has quick questions right now, I think I'll turn it over to Bob and let him share his screen, and we can learn about what's going on at Geprags. Take it away, Bob.
Okay. There we go. Well, thank you everyone for joining in and listening to what we have to say about water quality. This is a description and introduction to something called process-based restoration. Process-based restoration is a restoration strategy that's focused on restoring essential processes to streams. And a lot of these processes have been lost over the years as a result of ongoing degradation. And when you see some of these pictures, you'll be I think it will all look very familiar to you. So it really picks up on all the concepts that Kate introduced in her talk, but it does, you're going to see it's going to be application of these things on a much more localized level. So in addition to being on the Conservation Commission, I run a business, Riverscape Ecology, and we provide field services in the name of ecological restoration and a range of services. One of the things we're doing is process-based restoration. And we have partnered with Vermont Land Trust and TNC to see if we could get this as really a recognized and get this whole process-based restoration integrated into Vermont conservation. These pictures are from a Vermont Land Trust property, and this is called Crooked Creek. It's a low flow stream. It's pretty, you see a lot of erosion, you see a lot of incision. Incision is vertical erosion, where the stream, here's a good example of that, where it is eroding down and it erodes down, and it's sort of a positive feedback loop. The deeper it gets, the less access the water has to the floodplain and the more it erodes. So as I said, this should be very familiar to anyone that's walked around the Champlain Valley. It's really, many of our streams, both large and small, show signs of incision and erosion. And to Kate's point, 21% of the phosphorus loading in Lake Champlain comes from these stream channels. So what is our response to this? Our response to this is to implement structures that are going to change the dynamics of these streams. And so you may have heard the term Beaver Dam analog. Well, that is what this is. This is an example of a Beaver Dam analog. These are UVM students who we brought out to this site, and in an afternoon, we built, I want to say 28 structures in probably half mile of stream channel. And what these structures are these posts, which is buckthorn, and we combine this with a invasive plant control project, and we repurpose the buckthorn for stream restoration. So within the post, material is sort of woven through. In this case, there's willow, and then there's just there's sod and there's leaves. And why do we do this? To create these conditions. So what we've done here, so that was the fall. This is about 6 weeks later, and it looks very different. I'm not sure if my thing's going to allow me to go back. Okay, it will. So compare this right here to how it looks now. And we've accomplished really four main things. For one thing, we've created aquatic habitat where it was just a trickle before. Now we actually have aquatic habitat that could be used by a number of organisms. Secondly, we reconnected the floodplain, which is a really important concept for this phosphorus reduction. So as you could see, if during a rain event, if water levels increase in this stream, the water levels will course over the floodplain. And when they do that, the water in essence, it de-energizes. So it's no longer an erosive force. And with that erosion, with any of that sediment that ends up in the water column, that all carries phosphorus, as Kate mentioned. The other thing it's doing while it's not promoting erosion, but it's actually promoting something called aggradation, where sediments are accumulating on the bottom of that channel. And that's important too, because what we really want to do with these incised streams is we want to raise the stream bed, because eventually these structures are going to be gone. You know, the water is going to work its way through there, and that's fine. It's designed to do that. But in the interim, if the stream bed has aggraded and raised, it will still retain access to its floodplain. The fourth thing that I'd like to focus on is something, it's a little less intuitive. It's called hyporheic exchange. Hyporheic exchange is a natural process where surface waters and groundwater exchange in river channels. And this is very important to the ecology of a cold water system. Here's some more views of the same type of work. And this is looking upstream. So basically, Beaver Dam analog is very, I think it's a pretty good description of what's going on here. And this is, and once again, you know, these structures will not stay in, it's not a big investment in time or material, and the structures are not intended to stay in place forever. And that's fine, because the other thing that we're doing is we're adding wood to a wood-starved system. Wood is essential to the ecology and the dynamics of our streams. And in many of the streams, particularly in the Champlain Valley, we just don't have wood because we've lost our riparian forests. Okay, so this is what the competition is doing, and this is in Geprags. And I'm not sure if anyone, I'm sure some of you have walked the Western Corridor where we had that incised for years. You know, that stream was incised and just a intermittent stream that most years probably dried up come July. It is now, it's now sort of an aquatic wonderland. This is, of course, a beaver dam. And so the beavers have moved in, and they're doing something very similar to process-based restoration. In fact, process-based restoration was modeled on the work that the beavers have done, because there's an acknowledgement that beavers have been a really a lost component of North American stream ecology. And in fact, we really have no historical record of what our streams looked like in their natural state when beavers, you know, when beavers ruled, because even by the time Vermont was settled in the mid 18th century, beavers had been extirpated from the landscape. So this is all, so the resurgence of beavers is really sort of a new, it's a new era for us. And here's the main pond, and you could see, in addition to all the things that process-based restoration did, reconnected floodplains, slowed the flow. You could see here where it's actually, you know, creating wetland, basically wetland conditions. And so this is an emergent wetland. There's also wet meadow associated with it. So we can, so it's our belief that the benefits that from beavers' work really can and should be quantified, okay? Because this is the kind of stuff that with the Clean Water Fund and something called the Functional Floodplain Initiative, the state is getting ready to pay contractors and organizations to implement this process-based restoration. And they're doing it when, okay, we could get beavers to do it for free. But, you know, nothing is totally for free. And I just want to show you something. This is our attempt to basically quantify the work that the beavers have done in Geprags, okay? Because we think that there's real benefits to stream ecology that the beavers have, you know, through the beavers' work have achieved. So This is a schematic of the work that the Beaver have done. And this is our quantitative analysis of what they've done. They've created.
Bob, sorry to interrupt you, but we're still seeing
Yeah.
the last screen of your slideshow.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
I am.
okay. How about now? Anybody seeing that?
Nah,
Oh,
maybe
okay.
if you stop share and then start share again
Really?
on the new screen or something.
Well, I'll tell you what. Basically, I'm just going to read this off to you. Okay, what the Beavers in Geprags have achieved. So they've created 0.36 acres of aquatic habitat. So that's areas of inundation. And they've reconnected 108,000 square feet of floodplain. And then in terms of wetlands created, they've created 0.4 acres of shallow emergent wetland and much more in terms of wet meadow conditions, which we can't really assess until the growing season. So, and why would we want to quantify that? Because we think that the state should actually, in essence, pay for the work that the Beavers are doing, because at some point there's going to be infrastructure conflicts. Right now, for those that are familiar with Geprags, Shelburne Falls Road borders it to the south. The Beaver are probably 150 feet from Shelburne Falls Road, and that culvert will need to be protected. And if somebody like the town is credited by the state for the work that the Beaver are doing, then there will be funding to put in those beaver mitigation practices. And let me see if I can, this is what a beaver mitigation practice looks like. This is Charlotte Park and Wildlife Refuge. And in the background, you could see an underpass to a Vermont railway underpass. And the railroad was very nervous about beaver structures upstream, and they wanted to protect their culverts. So this is one of the approaches. It's called a Beaver Deceiver. And that's what it looks like. And it's really to protect that culvert. And as long as the structure is there, that culvert will be protected from being blocked. But something like this costs money, and it would be great if we could be proactive about putting these structures in place, before the road commissioner has to come in and take them out because the road is flooding. So in addition to the water quality benefits that Beaver can impart, there are co-benefits too, and one of them has to do with planned communities. So I'm sure everyone has seen in our stream corridors lots of invasive plants, lots of woody invasive plants, buckthorn and honeysuckle. A big part of why they are there is because when the streams incised, water tables dropped, and wetland floodplains essentially lost their hydrology. They dried out. Once they lost their hydrology, they lost their plants. So within that void, buckthorn and honeysuckle moved in, and they established, and they were very happy in that setting. So this is stream channel that is just, it's old, it's incised. It was a low flow stream. This was spring of last year, and the beaver you could just start seeing the impacts of beaver on the hydrology. This is what it looked like looking from the other direction, but much more water, much more floodplain connection in December of this year. And what we did, we went in and we helped out by removing the invasives. And in real time, we're going to see if a native wetland plant community is restored in this floodplain. So this work it's being acknowledged by the state as important work in helping to meet our water quality goals through things like Clean Water Fund and Functional Floodplain Initiative. They're spelling out what these practices can be and how they're going to be, how it's going to get done and how much money they're going to pay for it. But once again, You could pay a contractor to do it, or we as a community can be a little more accommodating to beavers and let beavers do it for free. The challenge with beavers, everyone knows that there's challenges with beavers, and people, I think, it's widely acknowledged the problems with beavers, but very few people can really talk about the benefits imparted by beavers. And that's important because I think there's a very low tolerance of beavers by the general public. And case in point, this is Lewis Creek Wildlife Management Area off of Silver Street, south end of town. And once again, Lewis Creek, it has challenges. There's huge zones of, steep in size banks along this whole reach. And what the state has done, they've given the river room to do its own thing, and it is starting to do its own thing. And the beavers coming in are a big part of it, and they were really jump-starting these channel evolution processes that were going to restore water quality. But unfortunately, and this was just sort of a nice little beaver complex. It was sort of an interesting partial 3/4 dam, and then it was a bank lodge in bottom left, and you can see the food cache bottom right. And by spring of 2021, it was gone, and there's evidence that a chainsaw was used to get rid of it. And I can't say what was in the hearts and minds of whomever decided to take it out, but it's an attitude that it would really serve us well if we were able to change that kind of thinking, and we as a community, as a society, became more tolerant of beavers. And that's the points we're trying to drive home. The state has acknowledged that these restoration processes need to, or could really boost our achievement of water quality goals. And we're going to do it, through contractors. We're going to do it through beavers. We need to, we need it all. This isn't intended to be sort of a prescriptive approach. Basically, we want it to be, just a really adaptive approach to how we tackle water quality. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. I just wanted to close with a couple of more local to Hinesburg projects that LCA is working on this in the next year or two, I guess, just for local folks' knowledge. And you may have read about some of these already in the Record or Citizen. We just completed a design for a wetland restoration project, which will be behind the United Church of Hinesburg, which is the sort of this area here. There's a stream, like ditched sort of channel that runs between the church and this neighboring property to the north. That channel will be sort of redesigned, and the field will be regraded to restore this area to what will be natural wetland vegetation. So it'll be sort of dug up, the lawn will be dug up, regraded, planted with natural native plants and trees. And eventually the flow will be able to come out underneath Stella Road, which is where this picture is taken from, and proceed on from there. That'll help clean up this water as it comes down from, it actually runs, it begins at Lyman Meadows and comes down past Lampman's through the Russell Farm and then under 116. So it'll really help clean up that water before it reaches the La Platte. We're also going to be starting on a project to develop a rain garden at Lyman Meadows in the large green area at Lyman Meadows. That's just sort of in the beginning phases, but we'll be working on a concept design with some engineers for that project. We're also creating a guidance manual so that folks at their own properties can kind of assess their properties or their neighborhoods and figure out like the best next steps to take to make some improvements on their properties. We're going to be doing a little bit of education and outreach to some local neighborhoods, most likely to the Partridge Hill area is what it's looking like under that grant. And that'll probably be happening this like this summer or fall. And then we also have a grant that's joint with the Winooski Natural Resources Conservation District and the Lake Iroquois Association to develop what's called a watershed action plan for both Lake Iroquois and the Patrick Brook watershed, which is the brook that flows out of Lake Iroquois and into the La Platte. So that will help develop projects, identify and develop projects in the watershed to help improve water quality. So lots of work here in Hinesburg this year, and I'm sure you'll be seeing us around doing some work in your area, hopefully, and get some good, good products out of it that you all can use too. So with that, I will stop sharing, and I think Bob and I are both happy to take any questions or comments, whatever folks have.
Hi, I'm Dale Wernhoff. I live on the south side of the community school on 116. So I border the La Platte River at the back of my property, and I have streams on either side. And I just want to kind of put a bug in your ear. I know this isn't specifically about that, but we have had beavers in the back, and I'm completely all for beavers, and I understand completely everything you're saying. But over the last 5 years, we have had some flooding issues at our actual property. So I'd like you just to keep in mind that, ideally my house wouldn't even be here and it could be a complete floodplain. But I'd like you to keep in mind that there are properties that, as much as it'd be nice to have the beavers there, and if we can work with them, I'd much rather work with the beavers than against them. But I just need to let you know that there are people who have property that,
oh yeah,
it's my house and I don't want it to flood. So, it's just that kind of thing, so,
yeah.
But I just wanted to point that out to you, but I appreciate all the work you guys are doing. It all makes perfect sense. Like the streams out on either side of my property one is fed from West Buck Hill Road. And I have quite a mound of, looks like a hill on my property, but that is actually all gravel that the town probably spread on that road at one point in time. And every few years it washes down and completely fills the stream. And so I have to just rake it out a little bit, but I do have the rest of the property in, it's, floods all the time. So, I mean, I understand the value of the wetlands there. But it just, I don't know. I just want to kind of just put a bug in your ear about, just remember that there's property owners too that have to coincide with the beavers. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's great. Can I say something?
Yes.
Dale, I'm so glad you brought that up because, this whole, getting back to this whole concept of valuing the ecosystem services that beaver are providing should be extended to landowners. Okay. So you should be, so you should be getting credit for basically tolerating beavers. And in doing so, if you get credit and there's funds available, then we could put in, essentially, beaver mitigation strategies that control the level of, beaver ponds. So, it puts the brakes on the flooding of your property.
Yeah.
And that's where I think we need to go. Yes. And we totally acknowledge that beavers can create all kinds of problems, but there's techniques, there's strategies to address those. And we just need, and we believe the state should be, compensating landowners for hosting beavers and their benefits and be in a position to help pay for those strategies.
Yeah, that sounds great. Cause
Yeah.
I mean, I have, I have photos that I have of beavers chewing down trees on our property, and it doesn't bother me at all. They got to get the wood somewhere. And that's actually kind of fascinating that they drag it that far from,
Yeah.
from where they chop it down to where they're building the dam. So,
Yeah.
you know, more power to them. But yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I just wanted to, you know, say that again, that, you know, just want to make sure you guys are aware that there's property owners along the stream that have issues. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
This is Diane Kingston. I was wondering if I can make some comments.
Sure, go ahead, Diane.
First of all, thank you for the presentation, Kate and Bob. It was really, really informative and very helpful. So I'm actually Bob's future neighbor, but we're probably not going to be building for another year. I would like to get involved in the Lewis Creek Association. Is that all right if I'm not a Hinesburg resident yet?
Oh, yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we have folks who help from all of our 6 watershed towns, and we even have some volunteers who come down like from Burlington to help with water quality sampling. So
okay, because I'd be really, really excited to get involved in what's happening on Partridge Hill. Our property has a pond on it, and we're pretty newbies about that. So anything and the little stream that goes through it as well. So we'd like to do the right things rather than the wrong. And I do have one other question, since we are going to be building a home. Do you have a preferred driveway material to use to help with runoff, et cetera?
it's a great question. I mean, probably more than driveway material, I would say just grading and making sure the swales along the sides of the driveway are in good shape is probably more important, but maybe others have more feedback about that. Andrea, I don't know if you have anything that you would add.
No, I think the material is, we have a variety of crushed stone and gravels that you can use. It's keeping it maintained. It's putting in either broad-based dips or water bars so that you get the water off the driveway frequently and into your ditches. Sometimes even at the gravel pit, there's different amounts of gradations of sediment or swale or sand mixes in it. So it's just something that packs nice and hard, and the maintenance is the big issue.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments?
Hi, Kate. It's Barbara 4-Hour with I don't know if it's a question for you or Bob, but I was interested in when Bob spoke about the Beaver Deceivers, which anyway, is that something that's going to will be happening in Geprags? And if so, can the town access the money from the state to help with that project?
Bob, you want to take that one, or I can?
Well, let me start. So Barbara, we're going to get an estimate for a Beaver Deceiver type structure for Shelburne Falls Road, and we'll get that probably next week. And where the money comes from, I don't think the state is there yet. We want to make the case that it's there. Particular to Geprags, we still have Vermont gas money that I think we as a conservation commission would probably use for that. But we certainly want to make the case to the state that, hey, look, this is, I'm happy to send you the analysis. Sorry it didn't come through on my screen, but just our quantitative analysis. This is the work that's being done. This is what's being provided, by us hosting the beavers on town land. So, send some bucks our way, please.
Okay, great, thanks. And it's interesting to hear that it's happening, something's happening next week. So thank you.
Okay, great. Well, not hearing any other comments, I guess we will sign off for tonight. Feel free to reach out to either me or Bob. I think you have my email. And of course, you can reach us through the town too, if you want to reach out that way. And hopefully maybe we'll see some of you next week. I'm giving a talk next Monday too on amphibians and amphibian road crossings and our upcoming work on natural resources inventory. So looking for more volunteers for that. If anyone wants to go walk some rainy roads this spring, and let me know what amphibians you're seeing. So thanks.
Well, thank you very much. It was very nice.
Thank you.